thanks for joining us today. We're out here in the Jackson Library, study room 669.
It's a nice overcast day outside.
It's kind of gloomy. I'm Mark Ogeron, and with me is
Jeremy Glasgow.
Jeremy Glasgow. So first question we're going to be tackling is, what is social practice?
All right, so social practice is an art medium that focuses on engagement through human interaction and social discourse. Since it is people and their relationships that form the medium of such works, rather than a particular process of production, social engagement is not only a part of a work's organization, execution, or continuation, but also an aesthetic in itself, of interaction and development. Socially engaged art aims to create social and/or political change through collaboration with individuals, communities, and institutions in the creation of participatory art. The discipline values the process of a work over any finished product or object.
Okay, so a few things I kind of picked up on in that definition is human interaction. So thinking about some works we saw this semester, such as like the murals during the walk. Do you think those murals become social practice, or do you think those murals are like something else? Like, are they engaging human interaction, or are they just like part of the landscape? What do you think?
I think kind of yes and no. I don't remember at what point if it was the last class or the day of. Yeah, I think it's like yes and no, I guess. I mean, I don't know who all is interacting with it. Like, we're interacting with it as a class, so like it does have some sort of like lasting like effect just because we're engaging with it, but we're maybe not engaging with it in the way that it was intended to be engaged with.
Yeah, because if you're just walking by, you might not know what it's even about, or what
and
it's
like
talking
I don't
towards.
even know what they're about. Like there was the one with it was the train tracks, and the first one we looked at, the train
with
tracks,
the
and like the fire, and like I like don't really know what the deal is with that. So I don't know that anybody walking by would know unless they had some sort of like prior knowledge of an event or like the artist who painted it, or if it even is any sort of.
Yeah, so like how does like something that we don't know about, how does it bring about like social change or political change if we don't know the context behind what it is? So yeah, that kind of gets interesting with murals, but looking at some other things I was talking about with Isabel on that same day was kind of like appropriateness and responsibility of those different works. And so the work about the murals, they're engaging with a need in the community, like with either homelessness or people who need money. And so like that level of engagement, like how far does that level of engagement have to go? What do you think about that? Like how far does that like have to be pushed? Like engagement, can it just be awareness, or does it have to like...
Do you mean like a singular event versus like a long-standing sort of
either like singular event,
long-standing,
or maybe even like just like the idea of like, is it, for lack of a better way to say it, is it good enough to just like bring like an awareness of a topic without like physically changing something or resisting something?
I don't think that bringing awareness about is negative. I still think that has value. I think it just kind of depends on the context. Like, what are you bringing to awareness? Like, is awareness going to do, like, is that going to inspire? That's a weird word. Is that going to inspire them to change, or do you need to, like, be more, like, heavy-handed, I guess, with it? I don't know if that's, like...
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to think about it, is like there's just different levels of ways to do it, and I think they're all okay. It just depends on what is your intention, and so like
sure.
That was a big thing I'm interested in, is intention of the artist, and if their intention is just to bring awareness about an issue, or is their intention to like physically change the culture around an issue.
Sure.
And then when you think about intention and then meaning and how sometimes intention and meaning are separated, and so maybe it's intended to do one thing, but its meaning does something else.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because is that still like valid? Do you think that like I have a friend who I guess like he's not like well versed in like the arts and doesn't really like kind of participate in that, but he is kind of the opinion that for like a book or story, for example, like what the writer intended in the story is like that's kind of above all of the like interpretations of it, I guess. Like you mentioned this one story, I guess, where it was like someone was like in like an arena type setting or something, and they were like, it was like all built up to what they were going to fight, and then it was like never revealed the thing that they were actually going, and so he like thought that was a cop out, I guess, and like anything else that can be taken from the story, like undertones or like themes or motifs, like he thinks is like kind of irrelevant, I guess. And it's only he thinks that like what the artist meant is like above all other interpretations, which I guess I kind of just repeated myself, but
yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like intention is like for me like at the top of it, and then like whatever they say, we could their intention of their work is, or an intention of like a writing or a musical composition. Like intention is something we could grade it on. Like what it is like a lot harder to grade it on. Like is it music or is it a story about this? Is like it's our own opinion about it. But
like we even kind of talked about that the other day a little bit, where it was what did you say? Oh, it was like critiquing something within its like. Yeah, like not within itself, but like within its own criteria.
Yeah, like how is like what are they framing it, and how is that framework set up?
How well are they doing the thing they meant to do?
Right.
I guess. Yeah, I agree with that too.
It's different than like us saying that it's not what it is. Like it's the book is still a story, but his intention might be this. But if he's saying he's trying to set up all these metaphors, then we could critique it into those metaphors. But if they're not setting it up as that, and it just becomes like secondary, and it is what it is kind of idea.
Sure. So kind of thinking about the idea of social practice and stuff, I was spending some time recently on the Project Row House project, and something that you had said the other day kind of made me think of it. Like, is it, and this is like just kind of loosely based on this, like, is it art? Like, if it's not an artist doing it, but it has like, because I think the line's kind of blurry there, where
what's
it's
the difference between like community activism,
like the woman Susan that was at the end of Hours was doing all of these different community-based projects to kind of influence the community, but she's not like Rick Lowe type artist.
She's not calling herself an artist.
She's not. So
is that the difference is like,
but like
just the fact that like they're doing a similar idea, like in the Project Row House, like he's building these houses, but is that any different than somebody who's just...
So he's aiding like a community, like single mothers and like the Black community. He's like really kind of focused on and like uplifting, I guess, is like a way I could put that. And like Susan is helping like LGBTQ like kids and their families, and like helping the people to grow like small scale like vegetables and stuff, so that they don't have to spend money on
and providing food.
Yeah. But like, it's just kind of interesting to think like, how is she not an artist, I guess, and Rick Lowe is, if it's like the effect is kind of the same, I guess. And I mean, not exactly the same, but just like loosely the same.
Yeah, they have a similar outcome, but
because I don't know how many of those projects she like designed personally, and I don't know how heavily he designed this, or if it was more of a collaborative effort, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if she like, who someone would creatively like solve this problem, I guess, you know what I mean, like quote unquote solve. So like, it's funny, like context and like background is kind of like an aspect of social practice.
Framing it as like an artist doing it, or just an activist doing it.
Because like it's creative in both. It's just not creative in the way that like.
But I think that's a good question to even go to is like creativity is like as artist and any sense of artist, we bring a different level of creativity, something we kind of have been cultivating and working with like for years or decades. It depends how long we've been working in our fields, but just developing this creativity and how do we bring that creativity to that project differently than she might. For example, even talking to her, like asking her the question, it was brought up like, how could an artist help here? And like her first instinct, her first thing to say was, oh, I would love a mural.
Oh yeah, like a big visual, like this is art.
Yeah, this is what it is. Like instead of thinking about the artist as bringing creativity, it's like, oh, well, I know artists like paint, so let's make a mural. And a mural facing like a dumpster. How much does that bring to what she's trying to do instead of like thinking,
and how effective is that as like an artist helping her?
Who is that reaching? Where is that getting to some kind of outcome? How is that affecting any social change? But if you think about it as artists coming with like this idea of like just high levels of creativity, and then what is creativity and what can they bring? So looking up even like ideas like what is the definition of creativity is definition being the use of the imagination or original ideas. So how does an artist bring original ideas, original connections, just bringing multiple like different sources and resources, and not just this technical skill that artists are kind of academically put into, like being able to play an instrument or being able to like technically make a painting, but like this idea of being able to do like other things outside of that, like putting different ideas together. Not so much.
Like I hesitate to say like auxiliary skill, but like I can't think of another way to put it really. But I was kind of talking about this with Jonathan yesterday. So like the program that I'm doing, he was like, well, like what do you want to do with it? And like it is a field that I'm learning how to operate in, but it's also the way that it's teaching me to like think about things, I guess, that I feel like is the important part. And it's like the same thing with this class, like that class and this class both like kind of are challenging how like I think about how art operates and like how like music is like so many like exists in so many different ways, and so like that's totally valid to like if you're separating them, I guess, like the art like as like a field, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. And so how it exists in all these different places, and then kind of brings up these ideas of like interdisciplinary or transdiscipline like ways of thinking and research. And like as artists, like we don't like just focus on one thing. Like we reach out to like all kind of different places to pull ideas and content, and even like ideas like she was kind of big on like like if I had the money to like fix this fence, or if I had the money to like get somebody to pay somebody to do it. But as artists, like bring in the idea of like how we're able to think of resources and different resources, like even before walking in here we were talking about the introduction here, and just like we could just tap on the table or bang on something, or we could just have a computer, and like so it's not like we had to like pay somebody to make this intro, this idea of like just like reaching out and using everything around us to kind of
use that just like like solving that problem.
Problem solving becomes a big thing with creativity. Is how do we get these new original ideas, and not only just have the ideas, but how do we finish those ideas and come to new solutions, and not always being the first solution or the easiest solution, but like which one is like the solution we get to that allows us to use all these other things we bring to the table.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So I was listening to this podcast. It was titled "A Crash Course in Creativity." Kind of prepping for this discussion. It's by Tina Seelig, and she built this model for like kind of understanding creativity and kind of where it comes from, and like she has like a 2 kind of tiered circle, and the inner tier is made up of three different categories, one being attitude, another being imagination, the third being knowledge, and how those things kind of apply to creativity and how like artists bring those to the table is so starting with imagination is even going with the idea of like how do we frame the question, like how do we ask it, even like asking her a question, how can artists help, going immediately to painting, or just like simply what artists like we think immediately of what they do, but how do we frame the question differently, like how can you frame the question of what could artists do to get like this just unlimited possibilities or answers that aren't so like one-dimensional, and so that like puts us in a certain category and challenging those assumptions of what we think the right answer or the first answer is, and just kind of running with it, and going to the knowledge category, and knowledge being like how we just draw these connections as artists, and we like observe the world around us and find like all these like kind of intricate ways like things fit together, and then also attitude, and how attitude is like just like this creative impulse and this drive to create constantly, and kind of like we're in this environment in school that is supposed to foster creativity, but thinking back to the workshop on leisure and how like sometimes like in school like that creativity isn't fostered, it's like given this kind of direct line,
So this is like kind of, I think it's related enough. But yesterday I had to do a presentation, and someone else, like we all did presentations in the class. And this one of my classmates, her research was on like the accreditation process for like community college going to university stuff, and she talked about how they're kind of trying to like rebrand it to better prep the community college students for university, but like what does that do, like it's changing the curriculum, but like what does that do for the community college students that aren't trying to move on, like so now they're like how does that affect their education? And so like that's kind of a situation where it's kind of tricky to navigate like the environment in which these people are being taught to be creative, I guess, and like maybe aren't getting like the full story, quote unquote, because they're not like doing the whole thing. It's like reading like half a book, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like two different groups of people trying to do two different things, and like you're building or setting it up like a structure to like cater to one group, but the other group kind of just gets either left behind, or like in an academic setting, like it's like how do you like give freedom but also like give structure at the same time, because like in academics it's so much about like you have to have a grade and you have to have a way to assess it, measure it, and so like if you want like all this possibility and all this freedom to have like this creativity, and then like you get to art school and you move to a place where like sometimes you feel like you don't have any creativity. It's like do this project and do it this way, or
and see, and I've never experienced that, so that's like really kind of interesting. I don't know how much how much what you're doing is like guided in like certain directions, I guess, like as like I mean you do that, so I mean maybe
So can you talk more about like how your experience has been with that, like how
Well, so like my projects that I have to do aren't really, they're creative, but they're not like my, like practice. Like nobody, so like you, have to produce like a final like product of an art piece, and like my projects that I have to do, for like my ethnomusicology class and stuff are, like for the, I don't know how to, it's really kind of strange to talk about. I haven't really tried to think about this before.
What about
like my practice is not the thing that's being graded. Like the music that I do with my like musical partner is not, no one's looking at that academically. Right. You know what I mean? So like I can do with that what I want to, whereas like the academic stuff, I'm okay with someone kind of pushing me in certain directions, because that's not the part. I keep wanting to say like that's not the creative part, but it is creative. It's just
Mhm.
a tricky word to kind of talk about.
Yeah, but like when does it get to like the part where like, you know, you come here to like, you know, do what you want, and like, but you like the thing you want to do is like
Mhm.
the music with your partner, but then like you have to
Sure.
do this other thing like
Yeah.
in school. Like why can't like you fit that into there, or like why can't that be a part of like those assignments? Or
Oh sure, yeah. But even in that way, no one's going to critique the music. So like if I do a project that involves like the music that I make, or like the tradition that I kind of participate in and exist within, it's like no one is going to tell me that I need to like do that thing like this way or like that. And I don't know if that's how it is in the
yeah, so I'll just kind
like
of
art. Yeah,
go through like my kind of experience in school. And went to school initially as an undergrad in civil engineering.
Oh sure.
Yeah, so I spent 3 years in there. I had about 8 hours or so left to have a degree in civil engineering, and like I kind of realized like everything was so by the book. Like even if it like felt like, oh, you get to like, you know, lead this project, it was just like, yeah, I'm leading it, but like I'm just following like the numbers or
The
like,
guidelines.
the guidelines, or like
yeah.
we had like a book, you know, like the steel Bible, like it all has all the steel formulas and like the numbers and like how different flanges and things fit together and
Oh sure.
numbers,
Yeah.
and so it's all just based on those numbers, what you could do with it. And so I felt so controlled by that, so I got out of there and switched to art. And you know, had initially felt like it was like, oh, so much freedom, but it became like I was still like trying to paint like somebody else, or you know.
Oh sure. Like you kind of see, like the
yeah.
longer you're in it, the like more you kind of see the boundaries, I guess.
Yeah, you see all these boundaries, or even like now in graduate school, it's like, oh, I make something, and then somebody comes to my studio, and it's like, oh, you should be doing this, or you should be looking at this person, or like, you know, maybe don't do it that way, do it this way. And so like next thing you know, you're like doing something because someone like told you that's
Sure.
what they think you
Yeah.
should be doing, and then it becomes like super like unpersonable, and you know, like it doesn't feel like you're creating anymore, like
Yeah.
just by
Well,
instinct.
Yeah, even my like undergraduate experience, which was English literature, it wasn't. It's kind of, and I mean, and I'm not like I don't write really, but like that's I guess what I could compare, like the things that I was writing, people were talking about, or like the way that they were kind of shaping what I was writing was like how to write a coherent paper, and like how to like more like what to focus on when I'm analyzing things and stuff like that. But I feel like if it were like a creative writing focused like degree instead of like a reading stuff and talking about it kind of degree, that would be different. I just kind of wonder how that would like, because I haven't felt like I am creating anything in my like school experience so far.
Mm-hmm. So like
The creative part's always kind of been like
just
quote unquote like leisure
time,
stuff.
yeah. And so like how do you like bring that like leisure time and like those things you want to do when you have free time? Like how does that become like a part of like what you do like when you're in school, or like what you like do all the time, and how do you like blur those lines between like what should be acceptable as work and what like you actually do, like and that kind of brings me back to the first reading we had in here, Finkel Pearl reading, and
Was that the one we met at People's Park?
yeah, that was the one we met at
Yeah.
People's Park, and in there he kind of brings up the idea of Alan Capero blurring the lines between like life and art, and the idea of like life as art, or art as life, like the differences between those two things is like kind of like a fine edge. But if we really want to do what we want to do, and if we really want to be creative, how do we find ways to bring that creativity and like what we do into like other areas?
Sure. Yeah. So like the living life as art thing, I think is kind of interesting, because is that like a conscious choice, or is that like the ability to find art in the things that you, or like find art / creativity, like quote unquote and all that, just like in your everyday like life, I guess. I feel like that's kind of what at least I'm taking from this class, is like Susan is still being creative in those programs, even though it's not like a painting at the end, I guess. So like, is her life being like, life is art is life, kind of, I don't know, it's just it's a big question.
But kind of moving away from like the art object, but
sure, and like, I don't really know if that's what social practice is or not, but
I don't think it's like totally like anything moving away from the art object is social practice, but I mean, like she's definitely like touching on a lot of it, but she's also definitely like not framing it like as an artist.
But like, do you need to, I guess, is the question that I have.
Personally,
I mean, I don't expect anybody to like actually have the answer to that.
I mean, I'll try anyway. But like personally, I think like that's like the main thing to me is like, if she's framing it as that, then we can use criteria and definitions to like critique it under that.
Okay,
kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, but so I think like that to me is like the thing that makes it different. I guess like for like a strange example, it's like it's something flat and we call it a table, and like our definition of table is something we could like sit around and eat. Sure, it's a table, but like, well, it has a bunch of holes in it or everything falls through it. Well, then it's just a bad table. So like bring up that idea.
Yeah, I have like a book to suggest to you.
What is it? What's the book?
Oh, it's called Nausea. I haven't read it yet, but I kind of know what it's about. But like that example of like a table is kind of like, if you strip away all prior like theoretically like prior like understanding and knowledge of like a table, like what is, like it's just this strange like thing that like doesn't really seem to like have any sort of
it's just a label on something, and we understand, but once we do understand that label, like then we could like decide how like good a job it does at being that thing. So like if she doesn't like frame it as social practice, then like we don't have to decide if she's doing a good job at engaging
if she's like a
practice.
Good artist,
right. Whereas for example, something else is like saying, this is social practice, and we kind of like, well, it's not really engaging anyone, it's not really going for a social change or some kind of like a political change, it has no human interaction of any kind, so we could kind of grade it on either being a good social practice project or a bad social practice project. Under that, and then like, well, does she have any ties into the community? Like, why is she even doing it in this place? Is it just something like, I just like heard of this problem happening in Oakland, California, and then I'm just gonna go jump in and like do this social practice project to like bring awareness. Like, how am I engaging in it? Like, what rigor am I bringing to it? Who else am I like contacting and trying to pull into this project? How much time am I spending there? Is it just kind of like this thing like, I'm just gonna go do it, I'm gonna put up a billboard, or have this one night kind of event that I'm gonna plan, even in another state or somewhere else, and just like bring it in there.
Like the coordinating the basketball game.
But she, researching her, like she spent like a few years there, like.
So it wasn't kind of just like, I'm here to help out the black people kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So, it wasn't one of those things.
So another question that I had kind of looked at, or sorry, the what is social practice question was kind of related to another question that I had written down or circled. Sorry, is wandering alone social practice if you are by yourself? And we were, kind of talking about the murals. Like, are they effective, I guess? I don't know, what were you...
we were kind of like thinking about
train of thought.
Those murals, and then so to come up like back to that question of like, is it still social practice if like it happens like by yourself? So like if I look at that mural by myself, is that still like social practice? I would kind of argue, you know, that it could still be social practice even if you experience it like in alone or in isolation, because of like your idea of like being connected to a community or to like the community that it's intended to be presented to.
Sure, and I guess it's like does it have like a lasting effect on, I guess in this case, like the individual that sees it.
And so like that individual would take some kind of either change or new awareness and continue to bring it into everyday life. Or
sure. Yeah, it's kind of like the whatever that saying is, like about like teaching a man to fish or something, I guess.
Oh yeah. Same saying that she brought up. Name was Susan.
Oh yeah, she did bring that up. That's right.
Yeah, you teach a man to
back to that.
give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Yeah. And so, even if you experience it like alone, I think it still involves like social practice. I've seen projects where people sit down and ask questions to like just in the area, you know, like why are we here, or
we have some area.
So like bringing up the billboard at GPS as like a social practice. Do you know about the billboard at GPS?
Yeah, I do now. I learned about it a few weeks ago.
So it's engaging the community, even though probably the majority of people who look at it just read it in their head, or they don't really, ask the person next to them or say it out loud. They're just like experience it individual.
It's in a position where people are. I feel like where a lot of people are probably seeing it in their car.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I drive alone through there. I don't usually have someone in my car when I'm driving past it. I hadn't even thought about that. How like the context of where it's placed, that would definitely affect that, I feel like.
Yeah, it's placed on the corner of Eugene Street and Gates Hilly Boulevard. I think from the website, it's about 36,000 daily commuters.
Oh wow!
Pass by it.
That's so many.
And I'm sure the majority of them, if not all of them, see it individually, or maybe one other person in the car who would read it at the same time. But it's definitely like impacting the landscape in a positive way. And so right now it says, I think it says, "You make things, brilliant things." So just giving a positive feedback into these people's lives on a daily basis. And brings me back to this podcast I was listening to. Might have been a TED Talk, not sure, about this way to like foster creativity and like have that in your everyday life. And one way he was saying of how to do that would be to every time you're brushing your teeth, to think of a word and a random word, and then think of a random word after that, and like continue to think of random words. And then once you finish, like kind of think about that list and think about how like non-random those words are. And like maybe it's something you just saw or something in front of you. You might brush your teeth and say like soap or toothpaste or something you ate that day. But like the more you do it, the more like your ability to come up with random words that have no association to something else, and bringing back in like these new ideas into those things. And a little more of like a direct way to do this also he was talking about is when you're like having trouble like coming up with an idea of how to like solve a problem in your artwork or any other thing, is go on Wikipedia and just random search an article.
Oh sure, yeah, I've done that. Read
the random search and then see like if anything from that article could fit into that project. And so going back to the idea of like how is creativity missing, and how you could like force your like mind to like see random connections or experiencing random things to build that creativity into projects.
Oh sure. Yeah, and I even like what the billboard says, about you making things like the like royal you. Of that, I don't know. That kind of just fits into the like. I don't know, fostering creativity, I guess, and like kind of finding something like that in like everyday, like just goings on. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, just like your routine or your everyday happenings.
Where and that just kind of makes me think of the Harold Fletcher thing where he just took pictures of bushes, but like it didn't matter. Like the pictures didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It was like just kind of acknowledging that there is like art and something like to like value in like a lot of places and like everyday like normal type places. I don't know if I said that great, but
yeah, and I think he was also kind of getting at like in that same thing he was talking about how the camera like as a tool like allows him to see things differently because it points his focus or changes like the way he's gonna just be interacting with those things, and even this like the billboard just changes the way you thinking about the things you're making or things you're doing, and kind of just building on that same idea of just framing things in a certain way.
Sure.
Even to the point of framing the question that we talked about in one of our workshops was who is our community and like what do we need as a community, and
like is it more, do we need more jeans?
Yeah,
jean statues all around.
Do
like,
the jean statues and the jeans borough kind of
like
thing.
who are the jeans like what are they like? Who are they serving?
What's the point? Oh yeah,
like
besides this little like
acknowledging that like this like corporation type thing started here, and it's like who's benefiting? Like is it like the white ladies that think that's like nice, or is it like
the weird like pictures that are taken with them? Or I was passing the other day and like somebody just like had like a 1-year-old like sitting on top of it and just like taking a picture of him, like, and it becomes like this thing.
It's like a spectacle almost. It's like a pseudo like I don't know,
super strange Disney World thing. Like we're trying to create some kind of
like a thing to come see, but like I don't know, that like reminding everybody that like Wrangler or whatever like started, like what's the point of that? I guess it just seems like it's weird like perpetuation of this like corporation type thing, and I don't know if that's like,
and it's possibly just because they just have the funding to support a project like that, or even thinking about the project where we started the walk was in Under the Bridge, and how that mural under the bridge is done by outside artists, and
I mean it's like it's good, it's nice to look at, but I think either Sean or Isabel said that it was just like an aesthetic mural, like it didn't really serve any greater purpose, I guess. And so yeah, I don't know, like what's the like city spending money on that? Like is what they're spending money on like really benefiting the community?
Spending money on like this mural and paying an artist like a ton of money to do this, or Lee brought up this project that was done. I don't think it was framed as an art project, but the city had this idea, like, oh, we need to like kind of revamp what we have, and like instead of putting another sculpture, like the mayor of the city, I think he decided to just repaint everything, like just give everything a new paint job. And it wasn't these murals or anything, it was just making everything nice again and bringing that back in.
They were just okay, yeah.
And so like does that have a greater impact than painting these like cool kind of
like geometric shapes type things or whatever?
That doesn't have any impact on anything except an aesthetic impact.
Yeah.
But this aesthetic impact changed the whole dynamic of the city. Like
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and our workshop that I did with Jessica and Devin kind of started as a it started as Jessica finding this park that she had driven by like however many times and like had never seen anyone like using the park, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know how many people use it like week to week, but it ended up kind of coming together, finding Susan at the end, who like is sort of helping the community. And I know it's funny to like keep coming back to that, but
like,
it's like, is that an appropriate, like, yeah, a park looks nice, but like,
do
is
we
that
need
an
another
appropriate
park?
use of
Yeah.
funds if nobody's using it at all? And like we did a little bit of research on it. We had somebody like the city had somebody come in and like build it. I don't know their relationship to the city or area, but yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like, yeah, like what was really the point of like I don't know, doing that if nobody's going to use it?
Yeah, like it's this idea of like, what are you trying to even affect, or like what are you even engaging in? Just like, oh, we have this empty space, so let's just put a park here, or is like that a need of the community?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or,
oh yeah, and even in like Mebane, the town that I'm from, which is like 40 minutes east of here, there's like so it's not a very big town, and there's like one road that's that has like the most traffic, and it's like a lot of traffic coming by that road. And like last year they built like a dog park, and the dog park is like, so it's like a lawn, there's like a little gazebo, and just like like a sidewalk running through it, and it looks very nice, but like it's on this big road and there's no fence, and so it's like, what's the point of like like you're not gonna like go there with your dog and like let your dog like off the leash and play, because it's like an 80% chance it's gonna like run into the road and get hit by a car on this busy street, and it's, I don't know. And the downtown could definitely use like things to grow. And I mean, yeah, I mean it like makes the town look nice, but like it's also built on like the side of town that's like not it's nicer looking, I guess. So like there's no, it's also just kind of like making like the more like affluent, I guess, side of town like look better. And it's like, why not build it like
that side of town
on the other side?
That,
yeah, it's like, and I mean neither side of town is like beautiful or anything, but like
yeah, even
but it's like, why
here.
build it there, like if it's not going to be able to be used appropriately, and it's like just yeah, I don't know, it's kind of like, what's the point of it?
Yeah, there's a ton of areas in Greensboro that are just like falling apart, or just really just kind of trashed up, and they're gonna build things or paint things. And I mean it's kind of the entry to the Greenway, but it's not really an entry to the Greenway, like the bridge.
And now is that where you mean like with that like big concrete couch and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the entry to the Greenway?
It's one of them. Okay. Yeah. So there's multiple, but that is one of them. So it's just like, it's kind of part of that, but it's also not like connecting with that in any kind of way. And so it's not even a like connective engagement into like that thing. There's like, okay, this is the entrance, let's just do some stuff here.
Sure.
And so like even in these art projects, like creativity is just totally missing.
Yeah. No, that's, yeah, it does feel like some of these like city art things kind of missed the like the point, I guess.
Yeah.
Like what's the point of that big like concrete, like cartoonishly shaped like couch bench thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's in a spot that's people wouldn't sit. Like it's not a place where people like even gather to like.
Yeah, I mean it looks like it's a lot of like business type stuff surrounding it. It's not really like, maybe if it were like a block one way or the other, but like it's just kind of in a strange spot, I guess. All right, so I think that's all we've got for you today.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining our podcast. So some of the questions that we talked about, first, I think we talked about kind of what is social practice in like a few different projects. Another is what is missing creatively from some of these projects, maybe, and just other projects. And what was the last one?
So what is social practice? What's missing, and then how can artists help?
Sure, yeah.
The
How
three
can
things
artists
we're
help?
kind of engaging
Yeah,
in.
and how they kind of engage with some of that stuff.